Well, hello and welcome to the Breakaway Podcast. I'm your host, John Root. We have another very special Sunday conversation. Someone that's made a huge impact on my life. We're going to get into that special story about how he was assisting me and just about 100 other freelance journalists in the sports media industry when the pandemic hit. And also our guest here, Larry Lage, is an Associated Press reporter. He went out to Beijing for the Winter Olympics. He was inside and having those conversations with athletes, other media members, finding out what's really going on here in conversations outside of athletics. But Larry's one of those people that sticks to true journalism. Someone like Larry, you're not going to hear about his politics. Someone like Larry, you're just going to hear the story. And we don't see that in sports media much anymore. But when we have this conversation about the Olympics, there's a reason why I reached out to Larry. Not only do I want to get him on and, give him a special thank you for how he's impacted my life over the years, but the Olympics mean a lot to me. I think the Olympics have the ability to bring people together unlike anything else. When do you have, especially when we're talking right now, we're on the verge of war. When can you have, Russia and Ukraine athletes go against each other in just competition? When can you have, China and the United States just out here slalom skiing, and that's it. That the Olympics have the ability to bring those countries together and bring those people together in competition. We don't need to have political speeches or things like that. But when you have the International Olympic Committee that honors the CCP and gifts them and blesses them with the Olympics, this is the first time you had Summer and Winter Olympics in the same place. And while there's human rights violations and issues going on over there, there's no way that I thought we should have the Olympics over there. But if we do, and we're sending our athletes out there, we need reporters out there that are going to tell the story. And that's what Larry did. He's going to get into what his day-to-day looked like, and it's a fantastic conversation. He also covers a lot of University of Michigan. He'll touch on a few things there. But upon further ado, this is another special Sunday conversation, this time with Larry Lage from the Associated Press. Larry, you obviously got to be happy to be home. You were just out there in Beijing. You had to deal with some pretty insane COVID protocols. I know we kind of make the joke sometimes. It seemed like Monsters, Inc. You had 2319 people in hazmat suits out there. But tell us about your experience specifically at the airport when you were landing.
Well, when I got home to the Detroit airport, I almost kissed the ground like the Pope does. I think I put that joke on Instagram, but it was pretty close to being a reality. I've never been more happy to be home than I was. That was my fourth Winter Olympics, and each trip I'm gone 3 weeks. But going to Torino, Italy, or even Sochi, Russia, certainly Vancouver, British Columbia is nothing like coming back from China during the pandemic. And it started when we got to the airport in Beijing. Every single person working there was in full hazmat suits. One of those people gave me the most aggressive COVID test of my life. It tickled the back of my brain.
You basically got a lobotomy, it sounds like, Larry.
Yeah, they were digging. And I didn't have just a couple cute tears. I was flat out crying. And I've had 40 tests because I've been in the Detroit Lions bubble. So I've been subject to a lot of tests. I'm a veteran of them, but nothing was like that. And that was just the first of about 21, 22 that I had every day. Between 6 and 9 a.m., right below my hotel room, I went and you had to scan your badge, get the test, and then scan your badge again to leave. You had to have your badge or your credential, which was also your visa, scanned every time you left the hotel. And then if you were good in terms of testing negative, it would say thank you in English and in Mandarin. And if you didn't get that thank you, then you were going back to get tested. And if you tested positive, you were put in an isolation room, your own hotel room. And basically they bring you food and test you every day. And there were athletes that were stuck like that for 12 days, some journalists too.
12 days, because I know we saw some of the information about the skeleton athlete from Belgium that was stuck in isolation, but you're telling me people were stuck for 12 days?
Yeah, so one of the stars of Nordic Combine, and your listeners are probably like me, like what? Nordic Combine is ski jumping and cross country skiing in the same day, same athletes going for the same gold. And one of the stars of the sport, Jarl Magnus Reber of Norway, three-time world champion, number 2 in the world. He tested positive and he was stuck in isolation for more than 10 days. And since you follow me on Twitter, you might have saw this share. This poor guy had a 1-minute lead in a cross-country race, and he was supposed to go left around this curve,
Yes.
but he kind of did a wrong way loop. And he just explained that, he looked up and he went the wrong way and basically blamed COVID like we do for a lot of things. I felt horrible for him. And the next day he chose to go home. There was another event that he could have participated in, and he said, like, I'm out. I'm not fit to compete. So, and there were some journalists, I didn't know the journalist, but a guy on a bus said that he was in isolation for 12 days. And it's not where you want to be, because the food also was not very good in China. The people, I have to say, I've been on your show for a few minutes. I have to say the people, the volunteers, the rank and file, the Chinese people were Chick-fil-A nice, like so nice, like over the top, like jump out of their seats to help you. And one of the young women who I got to know just by saying hello every day and being friendly came up to me and in English said, I just want to tell you, you're very nice, and like almost made me tear up. And could probably work one up for you now, but like I have to say that the Chinese people were so nice. And I've been blessed to travel around the world with my job and around the country, and it's another example that you cannot judge whatever you think of China, whatever you think of Russia, whatever you think of the United States and the government that we have now or the government we had 2 years ago. You cannot judge, or you shouldn't judge, a country by its people. Most people are good people.
Yes.
I mean, the people in Russia were nice to me. People in China were nice to me. Vancouver, Canada is a happy place. So they were nice to me. Italy is my homeland. Of course, they're nice to me. But, Jim Leland had a great line, former Tiger manager. He said, most people are good people. My office, your office, and the post office. He had some other colorful lines I won't share, but most people are good people. And I encountered many of them in China.
That's what we try to cover on our show too, because obviously there's been a lot of stances that I think people like Enes Kanter Freedom, people like me, I didn't think that our athletes should be going out there. I didn't think it was basically honoring the CCP in the way that I was seeing it. But at the same time, you're hoping that our athletes are safe. We talk about the people of China. There's some great people out there. And I'm glad you bring that up, because we brought that up on our show quite a bit. It's like, hey, we were talking about the government here, and this is something that I am adamantly against. But a lot of it was too because I didn't feel like our athletes and then reporters like you would potentially be safe. Do you feel like there was any sort of safety issues? Because it seemed like there were some deputy directors that were working with Chinese officials that were threatening people. You say anything about human rights issues, you say anything about COVID, you say anything that goes contrary to the Olympic spirit, which sounds like they were making their own definition of Olympic spirit. Did you feel like those threats were hitting home? Did you feel unsafe? And do you think there was any athletes that really felt unsafe?
I did not. And I, toward the end, because one of my colleagues was writing about athletes and their relative silence on the human rights issues with the Muslim minority in China that human rights groups say are facing a genocide, as we speak. You didn't really hear athletes speak out on it. And I pulled a couple aside, away from the news conference. I didn't want to put them on a spot in front of a bunch of cameras and ask them like, hey, do you have a take on some of the human rights issues that people around the world are talking about relative to China? And they didn't want to touch it. Now, whether they, the two that I talked to, you brought up Kanter from Turkey. There's actually a Turkish ski jumper who one day in training had the crescent moon and stars on a blue background that represented that Muslim minority community that is reportedly facing atrocities right now of genocide. And that community was super excited that this Turkish ski jumper was representing him. Well, the next day he didn't have the same skis. And along with a reporter from Reuters, we asked him about it, and he said, I'm a sportsman. I'm here to compete. Like, I'm not answering your questions. So he kind of played the middle. Like, he kind of dropped this little, symbolic statement, but then he didn't want to talk about it. Now the question is, did someone get to him and say, like, no, don't do that? I don't know. And when I asked the Turkish ski jumper and a Japanese ski jumper these questions, no one was stopping me. I was able to do my job. Now, was somebody like tapped into my phone, listening to my conversations, watching my texts and my business on my phone? I don't know. AP told us basically to take your personal finance off your phone, probably good business, and use VPN as much as you can. So, I was tunneled in with a VPN service that allowed me to get to my social media in ways that I couldn't without the VPN. Like, in my hotel room, I could not get to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But once I used a VPN and tunneled through, I could. So, that was different for sure.
Yeah, because I know there was delegations that were telling their athletes specifically, don't bring your personal mobile devices, just bring burner phones, because they were scared of spying. Did you get a breakdown from the Associated Press, or did the media, before you even left the United States, to be like, hey, this is how you can prepare for this, and this is how you can best protect yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of the tips that we got. Like, take your financial apps, your banking off your phone. AP did not think we needed to have burner phones and burner laptops. I know some media outlets, including USA Today, had its reporters with burner phones and burner laptops. We were told that you should basically take any app off your phone that you don't need, and when you come and VPN as much as you can, and when you get home, wipe everything off your phone and start back over. Now, I haven't done that. I have thousands of contacts in my phone, and even though I see them they're in my cloud, I can't take them off my phone. Like, I was texting with, not to name drop, but I was texting with Jim Harbaugh while I was in China, and Anthony Lynn, former Chargers coach. And, I've got a lot of contacts in my phone that I shudder to think of, like, adding them one by one. Yeah. I've never done that on my phone, and I'm just kind of freaked out. So I haven't done that. And I also have pretty strong faith that tells me my phone and I am okay. So I hope I'm all right.
Was there any point during your time out there in Beijing where you felt like you wanted to speak up about something, or you wanted to at least have like a conversation about whether like human rights issues, or the aspects of, is this even the best place to have the Winter Olympics when it came to climate? Because it seems like, especially when you're dealing with skiers, they didn't seem to like the conditions much at all. So was there a time where you felt like, okay, well, I just got a job to do, but maybe there's specific stories that other people aren't telling that I'd like to go out on a limb and try to tell?
So I did some stories that I think were important for society on my beats that were not necessarily related to human rights issues facing China. Like, Nordic Combined is the only sport without in the Olympics without gender equity. Again, Nordic Combined is ski jumping and cross country. And despite the fact that women compete internationally, they don't have a spot in the Winter Olympics. So I wrote about that. I wrote about mental and physical health through the prism of ski jumping, which is ripe with eating disorders. Who knew? As I'm doing my reporting, I find that there's a phrase, fat don't fly. And this is something that ski jumpers are told and that they hear because the physics behind flight suggests that every pound heavier you are, you're not going to fly as far. And the defending champion on the women's side in the Olympics, the defending Olympic champion, Maren Lundby, also from Norway, I was the first English interview she did talking about her decision to take the year off and put her physical and mental health first. Also got into some access issues and the lack of diversity in ski jumping in another kind of grassroots story I did. So, I wrote some stories and did some reporting, I think, that are not just in the toy department, as we say in sports. Most of our coverage is fun and games. So I like to think that I was part of some transcendent reporting on those topics. I did not write about the human rights issues specific to China. I contributed in a reporting way to one of our colleagues who did. And yet I personally didn't feel like an urge to come out and say a lot of these things. AP has pretty strict standards or protocol for us to not share our political views on social media. Like, we're not supposed to. And I also am that way personally. Like, I don't really want to tell you who I vote for and tell you who you should vote for. I prefer to keep that private. I don't share my my baseball Hall of Fame ballot because I don't have to, and I don't really want to engage with people who want to debate my votes because I don't have to share them. So I'm kind of that way anyway. I'm a stay in my lane type of guy. But then in my own way, in my own time, I pray for people who I think need prayers. And so I guess that's how I reconcile it.
Well, because I feel like that's a lost art of journalism now. Is like a lot of people aren't like you, Larry. They decide that whether right or left, they need to insert their politics somehow, some way into stories. And I think it's a bummer that it's found its way into sports. Obviously, there's so much politics ingrained in sports now that you probably deserve to hear both sides, but you're a journalist. You're going out there to do your job in Beijing and say, hey, I'm going to tell you what's going on here. And it doesn't matter who I voted for, what my background is politically or anything like that. I'm just here to tell stories. Why do you think that's been lost in sports media so much, especially lately?
Well, I think because with social media and branding, if you will, that people want to set themselves apart and let people know who they are. And that gives them free rein to do so, and they choose to. And often, it's not real sexy to be in the middle, right? It's not real sexy to be the AP guy that you don't know who he voted for or if he wants Michigan or Michigan State, but that's how we roll. And when you look at media surveys about what outlets you trust, and they're on the right or they're on the left or in the middle, like AP is like number one, like right in the middle. People trust AP, and I appreciate that. I mean, I've been AP for 22 years and, plan to be a lifer. And I'm glad that we do journalism the way they do and that I do it the way I do, because I don't want anyone to ever think when they're reading let's say Michigan State, because then that's where I am from. I'm from Ann Arbor. I went to Michigan State. I was the mascot for.
That's a fun fact. How long were you the mascot for, Larry?
93, 94. So my junior year. And then I live in Ann Arbor now. I've lived in Ann Arbor for 22 years, and my dad's a season ticket holder for like 65 years. And so I'm so ingrained in these two schools. And I don't want anyone on either side to say, oh, that's a Michigan State guy, or that's a Michigan guy. Or, he's a Biden guy, or he's a Trumper. Look at these tweets. Like, you can't find one from me. I promise you. Because I can't. And even if I could, I wouldn't, because I don't think it's necessary. And I think we have enough things dividing us. Hopefully sports can be a place that brings us together. And I'm not going to, fight that fight. I'm just going to keep doing me. So that's how I roll. And thankfully, I work for an employer that wants me to do my job the way I do it and doesn't push me to push the envelope. They want the facts, and they want them first, and they want smart reporting. And, I plan to deliver.
Yeah. And that's what I can appreciate about you, Larry, ever since I've gotten to know you, is obviously you're someone that it doesn't matter where I'm at politically, personally. I'm just going to give you the stories, and that's it. And then I know for me, I have my hands in both buckets. Obviously, I host a political show here with Turning Point USA, and then I have a sports show. But like here, when we're talking about sports, like I just want to have conversations with people, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Let's just talk about what happened in the Olympics. Let's talk about what's going on at the University of Michigan. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Let's just talk about sports, and we don't need to come out here and like, hey, Larry, tell me how you've been voting or who you think you're going to go for when we got the midterms coming up. What about 2024? I don't think that stuff matters, but I think it's been inserted into sports conversations way too much. But going off of that, Larry, when you have stories like U.S. defectors and people that have decided to forego their U.S. citizenship to go join teams like Team China, how do you tell that story without, obviously people are going to think what they're going to think. But you just want to give them the facts and say, hey, here's this figure skater, here's this skier, here's just this Olympian that's decided to forego their U.S. citizenship. They've joined this team. This is what it is. Make what you will out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what our job is, at least at the Associated Press, present the facts without bias and let both sides say what they'd like to say about those topics. I mean, I think that's basic journalism. And I don't know if one of the people you're talking about is Eileen Gu, who, I was able to be, 3 feet away during her interviews. She, for your listeners that don't know, Eileen Gu is 18 years old and she was born in America. Her mom was born in China, and Eileen chose to compete for China. And she became the first action sports Olympian to have 3 medals in the same Olympics. Action sports being like X Games type sports, snowboarding, freestyle skiing, and that kind of thing. I honestly, in my heart of hearts, don't have an opinion on that, about whether she should have competed for the U.S. or she was free to. I don't honestly feel strongly about it. So even if I had an opinion, I'm not even sure what it would be. My opinion is I don't really care, I guess. Whatever the rules are, I think it's personal choice. But I will say she is one of the most articulate people I've ever been around in my life. Unbelievable. When I heard she got a 1580 on her SAT, it didn't surprise me. Like she was going back and forth in Mandarin and English, back and forth. Now, if she was competing for China and she couldn't speak Mandarin, I think I'd be like, come on, like that's a joke. But she clearly could, and the rules allowed her to compete for China, and she did. In that same half pipe area, I was able to be there for Shaun White's last ride and to be around him when he was interviewed. He's on the other spectrum of age in terms of an Olympian. He's 35 years old on his way out. And, almost getting chills right now thinking about how gracious and cool he was. And he's actually close with one of our writers, Eddie Pels, who talked to him the next day. And Shaun White was on his way to the Super Bowl and, kind of joked that maybe he's going to talk to Tom Brady about, what do you do next? Long story short, that's what I think.
Yeah, so people like Eileen, obviously there's a lot of people that say like, well, it seems like you're kind of empathetic to what's going on with the CCP, but there's other people that can kind of understand, okay, well, you got ties over there. Maybe you're just representing the Chinese people that we brought up earlier in the show. Like there's good people out there. And I think basically this comes down to you're a journalist and you're going to tell the story and make with it what you will, people. If you want to think about this, that, and the other thing, for me, I think I'm going to make a stance of I just probably didn't appreciate that someone can kind of just forego a citizenship or just kind of put the U.S. on the bench. And obviously, I know it was one of those where it was a little bit political with Team USA in order for her to just go and join Team China in order to compete. And obviously she's an incredible athlete and we'll always share those stories. But I think a lot of it just comes down to like, here's the story, whether you think she's empathetic to the CCP or she wants to just represent the Chinese people, that's up to you.
Yeah. Well, of course this conversation is making me think that, maybe I should make a run for the 2026 games in Milan Cortina, because my mom was actually born in Italy. So now I'm thinking, like, what Olympic sport could I do?
If you were to pick an Olympic sport, Larry, what would it be?
Well, it's funny because I've had people ask me that, and I guess I'd go bobsled. I'm 5'10", 185, 15% body fat. I'd have to get stronger, more ripped. I may not be big enough because those guys are physically so impressive.
Larry, you got 4 years to prepare. We can get you ripped.
I know. Well, so, I said I'm a lifer at AP, but I might have to apply for a sabbatical. But, I think back to going to Michigan State. Two of my fraternity brothers, John Lividitis, American born, was on the Greek bobsled team in Salt Lake because of his Greek ties. Another guy, Tony Tozzolino, played for Italy in the Olympics. These weren't medal caliber guys, but, to me, if you're not breaking the rules, then you're not breaking the rules. So whether it was Eileen Gu or John Lividitis or Tony Tozzolino, I can see your side of it. It's not something I'm going to get worked up about.
What do you think about the viewership numbers? Because obviously NBC spent pretty much billions of dollars to have the rights to share the Winter Olympics, and Pyeongchang numbers were down. And then this was historic lows here through NBC, people watching it in prime time. Obviously you had some streaming viewers go up just a little bit because a lot of people are watching it on their laptop or their phone. But what did you think about that? And what was the talk with other media members when it came to primetime viewership?
Well, the numbers were horrible. I think a lot of it was the time zone. I think some of it was people not wanting to support anything related to China because of the human rights issues that we've talked about. I think the Russian figure skater, Vaeva, I'm probably mispronouncing her name, the 15-year-old who had heart medications in her, it was basically child abuse. I think the Olympics have turned off a lot of people over the years. Russia continuing to get caught up in doping scandals and get away with it. So I just think the Olympics have turned a lot of people off over the years.
Tell us about, what do you think that the IOC can do and viewers of the Olympics? Because I think the Olympics have the ability to bring people together unlike anything else, which is just sports in general that we talked about earlier. What do you think they can do to fix this branding and have people come together?
I think they should bench Russia from the 2024 Olympics in Paris and the 2026 Olympics in Milan Cortina.
Mm-hmm. And then
you're not welcome.
Final question for you, Larry. What would you tell people that want to get into journalism now? They want to be like you and they want to just tell the stories. And obviously they're so pushed into this hyper and over politicized world and media sector and industry.
So I would say, do the same thing that I was told when I was in high school. And I went up to the late Bill Bonds, who was a TV anchorman and the inspiration of the movie Anchorman, for real. I went up to Bill Bonds when I was in high school and I said, I want to get in your business when I grow up. What do you suggest I do? And he said, kid, go to college and get a degree that you can feed your family with in case it doesn't work out. And I did. My degree from Michigan State University is in elementary education because I thought if this doesn't work out, I could see being a teacher and a coach. So you don't need a journalism or a communications degree to be in this business. So I would recommend get a degree that you can feed your family with in case it doesn't work out. And with all your free time, try to get as many reps as you can in podcasting, radio, TV, writing, editing, shooting photos, shooting video, editing photos and videos. The more you can do, the more you can do. And, identify your passion and chase your dreams.
Final thing for you, Larry. I do want to tell you thank you again, because I don't think these viewers, I haven't told them really much of the story about when the pandemic hit. And it was a devastating time for a lot of people. I know for me, I was basically a freelancer. I was working for the San Jose Sharks, was working for the Santa Cruz Warriors, and I was involved with a little bit of stuff with NBC Sports out there in the Bay Area. And I had this guy right here, Larry Lage. He sent me, I think it started with $50. And it was someone that I didn't know at all that was deciding, hey, I'm going to help out freelancers in the sports media industry and try to keep them afloat. Because for me, I was freaking out. I didn't know what was next. I didn't know how long this hiatus would be. And to know there's people like you, Larry, I'm honestly like getting a little emotional now to see that like that was just about a couple years ago. And it made such an impact on my life and countless other lives in the media industry. And I feel like we need more people like you, Larry. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. It's been an incredible journey for me kind of reinventing myself over the last few years. But I want to be like you, to help, share the truth. Obviously, a lot of people, they don't have to agree with political views, but I hope that we can agree that we want sports back to being unifying again. And I think we can do it if they start emulating people like you.
Hey, I appreciate that. And it's crazy. It's been almost 2 years because that started when the NCAA tournament was canceled in 2020. And I went to bed praying for freelance friends who were going to be in a rough spot without assignments. And I woke up crying about them. And I said, I'm going to do something. So I started a Facebook fundraiser, and with the help of a lot of people, raised more than $35,000 that I distributed to 100 people coast to coast. 90 of them, like you, I had no idea who you were before that. And blessed to call you a friend now, and fun to catch up with you on your show here. Best wishes going forward.
Thanks a lot, Larry. We're glad that you're on U.S. soil and that you're doing well. Appreciate you very much.
Amen. See ya.
Well, we all shop at the grocery store because we all need food. But what if you could buy the food you need and donate to TPUSA without even leaving your home? Now you can with Good Ranchers. They sell 100% American meat, and they believe so much in what we are doing that they'll donate $50 to TPUSA on your behalf when you purchase from them. Good Ranchers delivers steakhouse quality beef, chicken, and seafood right to your door. And with the code TPUSA, that's TPUSA, you can donate $50 to our mission while getting absolutely delicious food. You can do good while you eat good. Head on over to goodranchers.com/TPUSA today to solve your meat problem and donate to us. Get ribeyes, New York strips, gourmet burgers, and so much more. Order now with promo code TPUSA, and $50 will be donated to our mission of sharing and preserving true American values. Support American farms and ranches. Go to goodranchers.com/TPUSA and get a box today. Once again, use promo code TPUSA at goodranchers.com/TPUSA so you can do good while you eat good. And there you have it. A great conversation with a great journalist. Larry, I can't thank him enough. And I feel like the last two Sunday conversations, those are a couple people that have made a huge impact, not only on my life, but potentially hundreds of thousands of people's lives with their work. But someone like Larry, I think he hit the nail on the head. He wants sports being unifying again. But unfortunately, sports is dividing us. And getting into that personal story there, it was absolutely mind-blowing to see a Venmo come through after waking up in the morning from someone that I did not know at all. Someone that had no idea what my politics were, had no idea probably how long I'd been in the industry, no idea what my background is. They knew that I was someone that needed help. And I wasn't someone that was soliciting that kind of stuff either. I think you have good people in the sports media industry that decided, hey, here's some people that have been good to me. Here's some people that I believe are doing great work, and people that I feel like are going to be impactful in the sports media industry. And for people to think of me like that, to not only talk me up to other people in the industry, but to financially provide for me once that pandemic hit. I don't want to feel like some sort of victim either. It was a tough time for so many people in every industry across the entire country and across the entire world. So I don't feel like I really deserved it, but for someone to do that, Larry Lage, someone I didn't know at all. That's why I'm saying we need more people like Larry in the sports media industry. We're going to keep these conversations going. I know these are extremely impactful when you get to hear the inside scoop from people like Larry, like what the heck happened out there in Beijing. Obviously, viewership were down I didn't really want to support it. There's a reason why you didn't want to support it either. Another great conversation. But make sure that you subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff. We're on Instagram at TPUSA Breakaway. We also release these podcasts on Apple and Spotify. We're also on YouTube and Rumble. Thanks so much for listening. I'm John Root. Peace.